Okay, let's see. Check. Got everything going. What is up, y'all? I am doing a little intro to Serum tutorial today. Preferences, set all of this up. Go zoom. Okay, cool. All right, let me swap out this operator for Serum and just dive right in. So this can be a relatively quick video. This is just gonna be like an intro to Serum kind of a video. I'll get into some more advanced stuff in another tutorial, probably when I dive into my full-on sound design series. So with Serum, it's essentially you get four oscillators. Two of them are going to be anything goes oscillators, where you can choose either basic waveforms or any sort of wavetable that you want. And you also get a sub oscillator right up here, which is going to give you these 6 different pretty basic waveforms: a sine wave, kind of like saturated sine wave, triangle wave, saw wave, square wave, and offset or warped square wave. Then you have a noise oscillator right here, and that's just going to give you a variety of different types of noise that are based off of sample files that are built into this. These are the 2 main oscillators you have, oscillator A and oscillator B. By default, they're going to start in the init preset, the initialized preset. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to go over here and click on analog, basic shapes on both of these actually, just to start off here. And I'm actually going to turn oscillator B off. You have a filter over here. You can choose which one of those 4 oscillators routes into the filter. So like if I have both of these and I'm only routing A into the filter, hit a key here. It's not really doing much because this other sine wave is still being put through. Now if I make both of them are going into the filter, then now it's actually, filtering. Okay, you have 3 envelopes over here by default. You can add more in, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And then you have 4 LFOs here by default. You can also add more in. I think you can have up to 8 LFOs in total. Over here, you have a velocity curve and a note curve as well. So we'll get into what those do in a little bit as well. Voicing all of your like portamento times, glide, and how many voices you want the synth to have is all going to be over in here. You got your keyboard, which is totally playable. Your pitch and mod wheels, which you'll actually see that move as I, on my keyboard, my MIDI keyboard, move it around. And then your pitch bend range, which I think goes up to 24, just like most synths. I usually set mine to 12. I believe I said something similar in the operator tutorial. I usually go with 12 and -12. And you can just double click any of these parameters actually anywhere here, and it'll pull up a way for you to basically just manually input it. You have these 4 mod knobs over here, macro knobs over here. And I guess I'm going to start by getting into how all of the routings work before I move into the FX, matrix, and global tab. So on this main oscillator section, you're basically just going to start by figuring out what envelopes you want to have. By default, envelope 1 is mapped to, I guess, just the master, or I guess both levels of this. What's really cool about Serum, unlike Operator and most other more basic synths, this is a really great synth to learn sound design because it'll show you these little dots that travel along the envelope path as you play. So for instance, and I'm actually going to turn this into a saw wave, turn this off for now just for this demo, and I'll pull this down like an octave or 2 even. So when I play like a low E now, let's leave that filter all the way up. So you see this little blue dot that moves along here. It goes up the attack, falls down the decay, holds at the sustain point, and then when I let go off the keyboard, it falls down the release part of this ADSR envelope. So now if you did watch the operator one, we got kind of into envelopes a little bit. We'll get a lot heavier into how the sounds of the world are all made up of envelopes when I get into my actual sound design series. But for now, just know that, if you didn't watch the operator tutorial, an envelope is essentially your ADSR envelope: attack, decay, sustain, release, the pathway that any given parameter takes. So in this case, it's automatically mapped to volume. But if I wanted this to be mapped to my filter instead, I would just drag this across to my filter, or any other parameter that I want. In this case, I'm just going to drag it to my filter. And now if I pull my filter down, let's actually pull the knob down, you can see this little blue stretch right here tells you the range. So this is the minimum, and this over here is the maximum. It's not a very big range. Now, if I grab this little blue circle right here on the top and pull up, I can extend the overall range. So I'll pull the cutoff all the way down to the bottom, pull the range all the way up. So now what this is saying is that the minimum is all the way closed, the maximum is all the way open, and now whatever attack, decay, sustain, and release I have, you're going to watch that little blue dot go along this. So and you can see how that filter envelope, the cutoff frequency, just follows this envelope now. So if I right click, you can always bypass things. It'll still stay linked, but it won't have any impact. So if you want to try out different things without unlinking them, that's a good way to do it. You can always just recheck it or hit activate. Either way, it'll reactivate it. You can also just go and hit remove all destinations. So let me put this to a pretty just kind of sustain note thing, where it's pretty much like I hit the note. Oh, let's pull this back open. All right, and pull the release down a little bit as well. Okay, now these LFOs are essentially like an envelope that just repeats. So you can choose how it repeats. To start off, we're just going to use the most basic thing, mapping it to the cutoff. So I'm going to drag the LFO to this cutoff. Again, if it's already open and I play it, even though it's opening more, it can't open anymore from there. So I'm going to drag the knob all the way closed, and then again pull this range up so you can see that blue line going up. And now what's going to happen is essentially this over quarter notes. So if I put on the metronome here, okay, and if I put it on, so these different modes, LFO modes, and Serum, just like in Ableton, it has sort of a built-in help menu where anytime you hover over something and just leave it there, it'll tell you what that thing does. So if you hover over mode here, it'll tell you what they each do. So trigger means that every time I play a note, it's going to trigger this LFO. Off means that this quarter note rate will always be in time with the tempo, no matter where the MIDI notes start and stop. Envelope means it's just going to play once as sort of as a trigger mode, but it will not reloop. So, and that's it. I'm still holding the key. It's not going to reloop because it's just essentially now another envelope. So we're going to put on trigger mode for now. I'll just play this. All right, if we put on triplet and dot, now it doesn't automatically change this, but it gives us those options. You can see if triplet and dot are both off, it just moves along like half, quarter, eighth, 16th, etc. Triplet and dot give you eighth dotted, quarter triplet. So okay, I'm actually just going to throw a couple of drums in here while we keep playing with this. Let's see. Cool, and grab a snare. And just a little two-step beat. Cool. All right, so you can grab these points here. The white points are your actual just like the automation points, essentially. These kind of light blue ones are just going to give you the ability to curve, make these curves. So you can double click anywhere in here and it'll give you a new white point. So you can kind of do whatever you want with this just by double clicking. That'll sound something like. And now if I put that down, let's go like just half notes. All right, see, pretty simple to make some cool LFOs with that. Now, again, you can make these LFOs map to any parameter that you want. So let's try something with that same little shape right there. Let's pull up this oscillator here. I'm going to put this back on a sine wave. Oh, it's already on basic shape. So this wavetable position here, I guess I should probably take a sec to explain what wavetable position is. So you have subtractive synthesis, additive synthesis, FM synthesis, and wavetable synthesis. So operator is an additive, subtractive, and FM synth. Serum has all those things. It has additive synthesis, which is where you go and draw in harmonics here to actually basically just draw in more sine waves to kind of create a new unique shape, a more complex shape than just a basic sine wave. That's additive synthesis. It has subtractive synthesis, which is essentially just using a filter to take out frequencies. This is a low pass, but if you click on here, you can choose high pass, band pass, peak, notch, etc. Go into multi, you have low high, low band, low peak, etc. Flanges, you get your comb filters, phase filters, etc. Miscellaneous, you have some really cool format options that are sort of that like kind of modern talking style bass. A lot of like stuff that is based off of different hardware, I guess, and like all pass filters and different kind of niche filters. So I'm just gonna leave it on a basic low pass right now. And obviously you have right now it's a 12 decibel per octave slope. You can choose a 6 or an 18 or a 24 on any of these as well. So I'm gonna leave this down here. I am going to turn the level all the way down on this guy because I actually don't want this one playing for what I'm about to do. I'm going to click on the warp mode here, and I'm going to choose frequency modulate from B. So now this is not playing at all. At least it's not being put out to the sort of master channel of this synth. It's only being used to modulate this one, which if it's all the way down at 0, it's not going to do anything. Let's hold on one sec here. Okay, and if I pull this up, so actually if I just undo this for a second so nothing's being filtered, that's what it sounds like as I pull this up. This wave is frequency modulating this one more and more. So if I put it back through the filter, as I was saying before, these LFOs, you can drag them to any parameter you want and you can stack different parameters. This is kind of the whole way that Serum works. And same with Vital too, that it's sort of based off the same concept. All wavetable synths are going to be similar in that regard. So let's say I take this LFO, it's already connected to the cutoff here. I pull it onto the FMB. I don't want it maybe that drastic, maybe like there. Maybe I put it on the level as well. Pull this down a little bit. Maybe go to max level, pull these guys up a little bit. All right, now we're getting some kind of cool sounds. I'm just gonna throw a saturator onto this just to get it a little bit louder and thicker. All right, so already we're getting something kind of cool. All right, and let's see, where else can I go with this? Okay, so let's say you wanted to make this sort of move up over time as well. I can go over here, pull this over, make it so it's just a straight upward slope. And now I can map LFO2 to the FM as well. Now, if I put it on a really slow moving thing, like let's bypass the A warp for right now, so this isn't doing anything. All right, so that's the entire range, and that's the amount of time it takes. So let's say I put it on trigger. All right, so that's cool. Let's pull it to like here. So this is going to be moving up that way. And now let's reactivate this guy. So now it'll sound something like this. Maybe I want it a little bit down. And you see that whenever I click on one of these LFOs, everything that is currently mapped will highlight blue and show you which mappings this is related to, and it'll show you the ranges for each. So even though this is actually being controlled by 2 different LFOs, when I click on LFO 1, it's just going to show me the range for that one. When I click on LFO 2, it's going to show me the range there. So if I pull that a little bit down, now you can see how they change when I jump around. So Maybe this would be a little bit better. Let's pull in some hats too, just to make it a little more fun to actually listen to. Oh, okay. Let's pull in this guy. Oh. And grab that and just put them on. I will get into this in the next video here. It's a pretty basic beat there. Let's give it like some groove too, you know. Why not? Let me get rid of all of that. Okay, cool. And maybe even pull these up just to, sometimes when I'm just doing any sort of sound design, I just like having something more interesting to listen to. So I guess something that kind of sounds like this. Okay, so you can hear how it's kind of, it's taking this path every time it repeats, every half beat, and then over the course of 2 bars, it's also sliding this up so that where this minimum point is kind of moves up over this 2-bar period of time. Cool. So envelopes also, you know, if you want like just a really quick little like filter envelope, something like that, can always do this. And let's say we want to pull this guy and use it not really as a sub, but just like a little saw wave or something like that. And pull that into the filter as well. All right, cool. Anyway, hopefully that explains sort of how the envelope and LFO mappings work. The mods are essentially just, you take this and drag it wherever you want. Sorry, the macro knobs over here. So if you want to, you know, MIDI map a knob to something that controls multiple different parameters, you can do so right within Serum, and then just map this to a macro rather than doing it all within Ableton. I guess not every DAW has exactly the same like macroing process, so sometimes it can be helpful to do it in here. And then if you're, you know, making Serum presets, it can be helpful to have those macros already pre-set up as well. Over here you have your unison with each of these, so like let me actually just remove all of these. Remove. Okay, so what do we have here now? Pull this up. Okay, cool. So if I pull this up, now I essentially have 4 voices going at a time, and you can affect how detuned those are. They're really close to each other there. More and more detuned, you're going to get more and more phasing going on. You have a randomization. In other words, this is telling you, let me put it back at, I guess 50. This is telling you that this is where the start of the phase is. So every time that you press a note right now, let's say the random is already all the way down. It's not actually starting from here. Sorry, it's not actually starting from here and moving this way. It's actually starting from this midpoint and going in the positive first and then the negative. So you can move that phase here if you want it to start here. Now what happens if these are both down, you have them both up, and this phase is right in at the 180-degree point, and this is at the 0, and you play them together. Oh, whoops. And they were also the exact same. It's basically going to cancel itself out. Now, if you put them here, you're going to get a lot more of it because now they're getting some additive phasing instead of this just being straight subtractive phasing. So a lot of times, you know, I use the random stuff for certain things. I don't for everything. Up here, you have your basic like octave, semitones, fine tuning, and coarse pitch. The difference here is that while the coarse in operator works like in even integers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. This you actually have a totally smooth coarse. You still have those numbers. You can always type in like 6. So like the coarse pitch at 6 here is essentially doing the same thing as in operator, except here you have this continuous sliding scale, which can be really nice for a few different things like getting like nice pitch envelopes and things that you want to be on a continuous scale. So back into the wavetable selector up here, you have all these different options. If you want something like the harmonic series, digital harmonic series. So I definitely like encourage when you get into Serum, just like kind of looking at what all these things are. You can kind of see how they look. I guess this is as good a time as any to explain the whole wavetable concept. So normally you have a wave, and if you play this at a number I've been using a lot in these tutorials is like a low E at like 41.2 hertz. So if I play this shape and I repeat that 41.2 times a second, you're going to get a low E note with several harmonics involved based on the shape of this wave. If you play this sine wave 41.2 times in a second, you're going to get exactly one frequency. Here, you're going to get a bunch of harmonics mixed in. So what a wavetable synth is it takes this and spreads it out across up to, in Serum's case, 256 frames. So as I move this through, it changes shape, and you can see that across this sort of three-dimensional table here if you click on this. So this is sort of like you're staring at it from like right on the side and seeing how the wave itself changes. This is sort of, if you click on it, laying out all 256, in this case, waves, and showing you how they kind of cross morph into each other. So if I go back to analog shapes, I'm going to show you how you can kind of make your own stuff in here. If you click on this little pencil tool here, this is like the wavetable editor. So in this case, you see these are the 7 waves that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And by the way, you'll notice if you did watch the operator tutorial when we were talking about sort of the basics of harmonics, you'll see that each of these have a corresponding harmonic series. The sine wave, again, is just the single harmonic. A saw wave is every harmonic. Triangle wave is every other one in sort of this proportionate ratio. Square wave looks like that, etc. And I, again, definitely encourage you to do a lot of reading about harmonics. There's no way that I could possibly do a whole series on just harmonics. I would, it would take me 10 hours to really get through all the math involved in it. But it's really interesting stuff on seeing how those harmonics add up to these different waves and like why certain ones are canceled out and what that does to the actual shape of the waveform. So anyway, let me go in here and get rid of a few of these. So let's just hit the minus button on, let's say, all but these two. So we have a saw wave and a sine wave. Now, if you hold shift and click on both of those, so they're both highlighted, and you go to morph, you can click on morph crossfade. And now it just turned this into the 256th frame and this into the first. So when I go back, you can just click on the X to go back to the oscillator screen here. Here's what this wavetable looks like now. On one end, you have that sine, the saw wave, and on the other end, you have this sine wave. And you can see how it sort of crossfades into the other one. And it looks like this if I do the two-dimensional view rather than the three-dimensional view. So you can do that with any types of wave. Like if I, let's get rid of that one, and you can draw in your own wave. So I have a sine wave. You can just sort of take this. You can use different types of tools, like that's going to do that. You can sort of arrange it however you want here. Okay, so now I have this weird looking kind of wave. Let me do that. Yeah, so there we go. I don't know what that'll sound like. Something like that. Okay, cool. So again, if I hold shift and click on both those, hit morph, let's do like a spectral morph this time. It's going to be kind of similar. Again, now you see this is the 256th frame, and this is the first. And we go back. Actually, I'm going to make this one a little bit more interesting as well. And maybe like that. And this guy here. Cool. So it's mostly a sine wave. And we'll go back here. All right, now you can see on one end, we have that weird looking one that I did. Looks like that. And on the other end, we have that, which is basically a sine wave. I guess because I had already morphed it, it actually was morphing with a sine wave. So I just got to go back in and do that one more time. Morph. Oh, spectral. Okay, and again, just play with these different morph types. The processing too, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't clicked on every single thing in here, but the best way is to, to learn any of these synths is just to constantly explore and try out new things. In this video, I basically just want to give you, the general functions and let you kind of figure out ways to explore. So now we have this really pretty subby still because it's mostly a sine wave. Here, let me take this guy down too all the way, or just turn this off even better. That's still pretty like subby because it's mostly a sine wave. It's going to get a lot kind of toothier and bitier as we pull it up to that. You're going to get a lot more harmonics present as you have more of these sort of jagged edges in this wave. Okay, cool. So that basically sums up the oscillator tab. Something else that's pretty cool, you can take photos and throw them in here. Like if I actually just go, let's see, here's a recent piece of cover art of mine. Drag this in here. Let's go to, I guess, pitch follow. Oh, file error. Maybe that is not the best one to do. Maybe like a JPEG. Let's try that. File error. Okay, well, that's not working, and I'm not sure exactly why. They might just be like too high of resolution or something like that. Let's go pitch average. Yeah, I'm not really sure what is up with that, but generally speaking, you can take an image and just drag it right into here, and it'll actually create a wavetable that looks like that image. You can also throw audio in there as well. Like if I take this kick and drag it right into here, now it has my kick, which you can see that is basically, if I zoom in here, whoops, sort of what this looks like. Of course, now it's going to repeat this, whatever frequency I play, so it's going to turn into an actual sort of bass. And then as I move it along, and we can actually see it in here, you can see that it takes this entire thing and spreads it out across these frames. So that's one way to do it. When you drag this stuff in here, it'll give you a lot of different ways to do it. And again, just play with those and see which ones you like. And if that's a little too jagged, you want it to be a little bit smoother, again, you can just take all these. Actually, we don't even really need a lot of those. Just get rid of all of those. Oh, wow, okay. Let's see. Why do they keep coming? Let's just go out to the end here. There we go. Okay, I'll take those and do like a crossfade or something like that, and that'll be completely smooth as well. You see how it just basically split those up evenly. So on that, now you have a much smoother sort of transition between them. Okay, cool. So moving on from the oscillator tab, we have the FX section. Pretty basic stuff here. I'm not going to explain what each one of these do, but you can turn them on by clicking the little buttons on the side. They each are just some basic effects that Xfer Records includes in Serum. You have a filter, you have an EQ. Now, something to note is that all these are also mappable. Like if I take this LFO and put it on this cutoff, now it has that cutoff. On the oscillator tab, this actually isn't even doing anything. So you can get some really cool like double sort of morphing filter things by using both the one on the oscillator tab, the filter on the oscillator tab, as well as the filter in the effects section here too. So you have an EQ too. Like I can take that and let's see, put it on the frequency of this guy. Let's pull the gain up there. And now let's say we want to do this and pull the gain down. And let's do like something. Let's just make another one real quick over here. Let's see what this is gonna do. It's in the frequency. Yep. So that is what that does. Hyperdimension is going to be sort of like a delay-y type reverb. They have an actual reverb. This is sort of like a Serum specific type of reverb thing. But turn it off, you'll hear what it sounds like. So you get like a nice little bit of like phasing going on just because it splits the voices similar to doing so over here, and gives it like a little bit of a delay there. And then dimension is sort of like, I don't know, just fits in. It's like its own algorithmic reverb. I guess this reverb is just a little bit more basic. You got a compressor. There is a multi-band option in the compressor here. and you can just drag these kind of how you would on a Ableton multiband as well. Turn that off. Delay, chorus, phaser, flanger, distortion. You have all the normal types of distortion and things as well. So good stuff. And again, every one of these parameters, you can just attach an envelope or an LFO to it. In the matrix section, this is where, actually, let's go back and turn this guy back on here, and the EQ as well. This is where all these modulations actually live once you connect them. So the easy way to connect them is obviously to just take one of these guys and drag it to the knob that you want it connected to. However, you can always go to the matrix and, like, let's say, let's just remove all destinations, pretend that none of those are there. Remove all those as well. So one way to link this to this knob, and let's close this all the way. Oh, pull the range up. Okay, that's one way to do that. The other way to do that, let's pretend that it's not linked up there, is go to the matrix and go source is going to be LFO1, and the destination is going to be the filter cutoff. Now, it's not doing anything. It's right in the middle. But if I pull this up, so let's go back and see what that's. So I guess the range there. So if you go over here and you do this type, click on that so that it's a one-way arrow. And now it's all the way up. Go back here. Now it means that it's just going one direction and it's all the way. So the two-way arrow, if I click on that and put it there, go back over here and put this right in the middle. You see how it goes both ways. So it'll start from the minimum max. So if I pull down here, it does so with the you know the parameter value of the knob, the little white part of the knob, kind of right in the middle. There are two ways to change the direction of that arrow. One is in the matrix by just clicking, it'll toggle it. The other, I believe, is if you hover over where you would normally adjust the range and you click Shift Option on a Mac. And then you just click, hold Shift Option and just click, and it'll change that from a bidirectional to a unidirectional arrow there. So, and then the amount obviously can also go in the negative, in which case it looks like this. If I do let's see. Yep, so now it'll just start from the reverse way. So let me put this back there. So now you can see that instead of it starting there and going up, it actually starts there and goes down. So everything's just sort of flipped, reversed. Yeah, that basically sums this up. Over here, I'm not going to get into this stuff. I wanted this to be a pretty like intro video just to kind of show you where everything is, give you some options on how to map things. Again, this is, Serum is a great tool for learning the principles of sound design, envelopes and LFOs, especially just because you have these. Let me actually put this the other way. Whoop. So you can see that that little blue dot also follows this path as well as this line goes through. I'll actually just get rid of these. I think you can just double click on these white dots to get rid of them again, by the way. So everything is really nicely laid out and kind of shows you a visual representation. Like while this LFO is moving through in quarter triplets, you can also see that over here, this envelope is also showing you the volume envelope, which right now is pretty, I mean, it basically just goes to a maximum sustained point and holds there. But if we did have this like any other way, you can kind of hear the volume difference there. And you can watch that blue dot go across those paths and kind of start to understand how envelopes and LFOs kind of work. If you go to the global tab, you have a bunch of settings here that are just common things like unison range, width, warp, wavetail positioning. You can set minimums and maximums, things like that. For the most part, I personally just leave most of this stuff on the default. If you want to do things like hide the piano keys or limit the polyphony to one of any note number, showing the help tooltips, things like that, you can always change that stuff in here. But for the most part, I don't think I've really ever changed more than one or two things, except for very specific things. This chaos mode adds some randomization in. You can read up on that in the tool thing or on Transfer Records website. I'm sure they have some info about that. Anytime you make a patch that you want to save, you can always click on this little floppy disk thing right there, and it'll give you an option to save that patch. Then it'll be in your user section right here. This is a new computer, and I actually haven't transferred over my old user stuff, so I don't really have anything in here. You can also always go to this guy right here next to the menu button and kind of browse through the different presets in here. So for instance, click on a bass and click on that guy. Put my octave down a little bit. All right, keyboard, what do we got here? Flux. So these are all great ways too. Like when I was starting out learning sound design, like one of the best things you can do is see how a lot of these sounds are designed and figure out what they did, like what they did with their envelopes. You can easily click on them and see what they have them routed to. And again, watch the little blue dots travel along those pathways. Let's do one more just for good measure. Like, what is this guy? Oh. Ooh. All right, cool. Just some like sound effects, even stuff like that. You can see what they have each of these mapped to and watch what's happening, see where they're all mapped. You can go into the FX2, and the same thing will be true where when you're clicking on an LFO or an envelope, it'll show you what things are mapped to it. So really good way to sort of reverse engineer a lot of this sound design and start kind of figuring out what other people, other sound designers have done to make certain types of sounds. For instance, plucks or organs or different kinds of basses or sequences. Like this is definitely going to have some sort of step sequency thing. So you can see right there, and you can see here the semitones is what they have it mapped to. So yeah, hopefully that gives you some ways to get started in Serum. As always, thanks for watching. Next up, we're going to dive way more into sort of the fundamentals of sound design in Ableton and using the Ableton devices as well as like racks and things like that to get going. For the most part with Serum, I personally, outside of using the FX to modulate certain parameters in here with the LFOs, when it comes to actually getting the tone I want, I'll be honest, I mostly use Serum for its oscillators and then do everything in my actual channel strip down here in like the native Ableton channel, whether that's native Ableton devices or third-party stuff. I don't actually use the FX and Serum a ton, except when I want to modulate one of the parameters in here with the Serum LFOs to get sort of that sound. But when it comes to actually dialing in the tone and all the post-processing, I do a lot of stuff down here. Whereas like other people, sometimes they just have this track channel strip down here, and it's like just Serum and an EQ because they have all the processing that they wanted on here. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. Like I said, hopefully you got some value out of this, and like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff. I got quite a bit more videos coming real soon, or by the time I post this, I might just do them all at once. So anyway, I go by Saul Good, and thanks for watching.